I'm Tamara Thomas, editor-in-chief of UrbanHealthToday.com, part of the DocWire family of medical news sites, and I want to thank you for tuning in to Urban Health Weekly. Our goal each week is to keep you informed of the latest in health and medical news right from today's headlines. It's time to empower yourself with open conversations about your medical care with news that matters to you. So are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, I'm Tamara Thomas, and welcome to Urban Health Weekly, where we talk about medical news and health topics that matter to you. I'm here with Jackie and Lou. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great.
Let's get it out of the way. I'm still a little upset about this whole thing that happened at the Oscars. People are calling it the slap heard around the world. Chris Rock made a silly joke about Jada Pinkett Smith's shaved head. It was like a joke referencing G.I. Jane, that awesome movie that Demi Moore did back in the day. Will Smith got up on the stage, slapped the taste out of Chris Rock's mouth, sat back down, and proceeded to curse him out as Chris tried to reason with him that it was just a joke. So,
should we all sigh or?
Well, I'm sighing because I just have lots of feelings about this, but you guys go first and tell me what you thought about this whole thing.
Ladies first.
He looked completely emotionally dysregulated and impulsive and out of control. And it was really inappropriate. And he should have used his words. And then when he did use his words felt out of control. And I think everybody felt that thing at first, like, is this a skit? And then when he was sitting down and cursing out, that just was very disturbing and not well. And it really brought down the show, and the optics are terrible. And Chris Rock said the wrong thing. It was just a lousy joke. But they were words. And I think Jada Pinkett could handle herself. And I like what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said when he wrote all the stuff that he said, where he wrote a really long article and it was well thought out. And he came from the position of a Black man and what he thought about it. And he spoke on behalf of that women can take care of themselves. And this was really misplaced and disturbing to watch. What do you guys think?
Wow, that was a lot. Well, first, starting backwards from the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar article, which I thought was very well written.
Absolutely.
When we look at it, there's this whole perception that a man becomes more manly. I'll raise my voice there or make it deeper when he stands up for his woman. Blah blah blah. But in some instances, is that infantilizing the woman or making her like this damsel in distress that is incapable of standing up for herself? I think in this case, Will kind of took away her ability to do this.
Her agency, yeah.
Yeah, her agency by taking matters into his own hands within 2 seconds of the incident taking place. Where he just said, okay, I'm going to take charge here, blah, 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 and I'm going to do the spectacle. Going again in reverse order, obviously, anytime you lay hands on anybody, you're wrong. And you're seriously wrong. Doing it on national TV is doubling it. You being a star and a role model, and actually there because you're doing a movie about a role model, kind of multiplies it and multiplies it and multiplies it and multiplies it. That said, there has to be something deeper there to me. And I don't know, do any of you have Hulu?
Is this getting a guy thing, like where there's sort of guy code? Is this like coming from a male perspective? Do you think?
There's this Ben Affleck.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my God!
I was like,
the Ben Affleck movie, Deep Water, I think it's called, or something like that, or was it Stillwater? Either Stillwater or Deep Water, something like that.
Yeah, where the plot there is that this is a gentleman becomes the wife cheats on him or
well he allows her to have extramarital affairs so that they can stay married.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
and he ends up, I don't want to, spoiler alert.
Spoil
You should
it.
probably-
Spoil it.
You should probably tune in now.
I love a spoiler alert.
If you don't want this spoiled for you. But he ends up basically killing the guys.
Yes. He becomes a
Um,
serial killer.
Yeah,
when
he becomes
Really?
just offing these guys. Yeah.
But she enrages him, and she.
Excuse me, let's be careful with that language. Let's be careful with that language about enraging. But go ahead.
She enrages Ben Affleck in the movie. I mean, how else do you call? I'm talking
There's
about
no
Ben Affleck now.
There's no justice.
I'll tell you what, this isn't come that it's about the guy. This is a guy looking out for his own interests, even while he's like that. That's what it felt like. Will Smith was completely preoccupied. This was all about him and not really that much about Jada. It was between Chris Rock and him. There was a past history, right?
Yeah, but my point is, if there wasn't such a deep history between him and between Will and Jada, where there's been
between Chris Rock and Jada, because I think he made a joke in previous years when they were boycotting the Oscars. Remember that whole Oscar so white thing?
Yes.
They were boycotting, and he made a joke like, her boycotting the Oscars is like me refusing Rihanna's panties. Like, I wasn't invited, so that's just kind of funny. He's like,
it was just like another dig. Yeah. So there's a history of digs.
There's a history of digs, and there's a history between Will and Jada. And I don't know where those.
Oh, that's right. He had an interesting theory. He had an interesting theory. Go ahead with your theory.
I'm thinking, like, she's been kind of playing with his head, is the way I see it, because there's obviously something wrong here. And all of a sudden, all of these things kind of came to like a nexus, and he snapped.
He was laughing at when the camera.
Yeah, I saw that. He was laughing until he saw her face.
And then he saw her face, and then he got up, and it was almost like some unspoken things, a la the Ben Affleck movie, where she felt, so he's killing these guys, and she felt like, well, you're killing them for me, so that's an act of passion.
There's some weird control issues and dynamic in their marriage.
Yeah.
That's what that seems like. Yeah.
It's almost like, since we're doing Hollywood now, this is the Hollywood, I guess, talk. It's almost like the Manchurian Candidate, where something and all of a sudden he became like another person that we've never seen.
I know, that was,
and the smack, okay, it could have been like theater, but then the verbal stuff, and it became like very disturbing. I will say this, Jackie, you had said it ruined the Oscars, but on the other side, with all the social media and everything, it tripled.
Oh yeah, we actually know about it, right?
Yeah. Once people started tweeting about it and looking at their threads and looking at their phones, everybody started tuning in, and the audience, the viewership, I think, went from 10 million to 30 million.
Yeah, but I don't believe it was a stunt to gain views.
Oh no,
I don't believe it.
No.
But I think they definitely capitalized on it, because I think
so too. I think it just happened to work out.
Yeah, I think they could have, and they should have, went to commercials when that happened. I don't think
nobody, they didn't. Yeah, and then he gave apparently like the longest thank you speech in Oscar history.
They were so afraid by then that no one dared to take him off.
And there's a syndrome, actually, I think, that.
Oh, well, is it bystander apathy?
I haven't yet.
Oh, okay.
I haven't had my say.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right, go for it.
I happen to really love Will Smith as an actor. I think he's a class act. I've always thought he's a class. And I also, I used to listen to his music when I was a kid. Listen, no, don't mean to bust your bubble. The girls of the world ain't that, that.
Oh, that song was so fun.
But trouble. I mean, I've always been a fan of Will Smith, his movies, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, everything. Like, I've always been on that brand. I also think Chris Rock is like one of the GOATs of comedy. So I really, really am disturbed to my soul by what happened for a few reasons. First of all, we were just talking about the sensationalizing of that whole violence, and I realized that the Oscars was already decided when he got his award, and I realized that they desperately needed ratings anyway. But this to me was like a new low, because like I said, they should have just cut to commercial. and for nothing else, to give Chris Rock a chance to recover from that ringing slap. I mean, that was a slap that came down and hit him on his face. That was, and kudos to him that he was able to recover and like sort of go on. And that took away from the next, I think he was supposed to present Questlove's award. That got lost. Like the whole evening, everyone got lost because of that whole event. Like he just took over the entire show and just turned it into, and then everyone became like really Stockholmy, like giving him a standing ovation. Like what?
Everybody didn't know how to feel. Everybody was so wound up that Stockholmy is a really good way of putting it. Yeah.
And then Denzel Washington and Tyler Perry running and comforting him. He just perpetrated a crime against another Black man. Okay.
Yeah, look how they're trying to like manage
him. Rock, who got slapped for doing his job, right? And then that leads me to my other point, that when this kind of stuff happens, white people, not all white people, but white people in general, look at this kind of stuff and say, you see, this is how Black people are. They're inherently violent. So this plays into that whole stereotype of Black on Black crime. And this is how we are. We're inherently violent people. And this is how we deal with our problems. And I'm not happy with Black people who are celebrating this kind of stuff either, because this is not who we are. People like Chris Rock and Will Smith need to understand, and I think they do, and maybe he forgot because he's just been so rich for so long, that when they step out, they represent all Black people. They don't just represent themselves. And I know there's people that are going to disagree with me, but every time I step out into the world, I always think about my actions and how it's going to affect other Black people. There are people that I've wanted to read for filth, and I would have been justified for doing it. But I think back to that stupid angry Black woman stereotype, and I stop myself because I refuse.
What a burden that is for you.
I refuse to be part of that stereotype for people to say, yeah, it's typical, because that's how they are. She's a typical angry Black woman. I refuse. And Will Smith should have refused to go down that path. Chris Rock refused to go down there. He was probably also thinking, you're not gonna mess up my bag. But you have to understand that, like, that comes with the territory, whether you agree or you don't agree. It always comes with the territory, because there's always eyes on us, always eyes on us. We always represent our race, whether we want to or not. And finally, where's the care for Chris Rock? Everyone is coddling Will Smith and oh, poor Will, and crowding around him and standing over. Listen, I hope that they take the Oscar from him. I know they probably won't, but there needs to be some repercussion. I understand they asked him to leave and he refused to leave.
He refused to leave?
Refused to leave, yes.
Yeah.
So now Chris Rock has to stand there and continue to do his job with this man who just assaulted him, staring him in his face.
Sitting in the front row.
Can you imagine a victim of assault going to court and having to sit right in front of the person who committed a crime against them, who assaulted them? But it's okay because he's a Black man, and Black people don't have feelings. So it's okay. And it was Black on Black. So just on so many levels, for me, this just like hurts me to my soul and to my core. Anyway,
that's how Chris Rock handled it. I thought he handled it well.
He handled it very well. But
I was impressed.
But let's not forget that he was slapped the hell out of on national TV. Look, he has children too. His children have to live this down. His family has to live this down. Everyone's celebrating Will Smith as if he did some great thing. And then he has gall to get on there and talk about how he defends his family and crazy things for love and all these messed up justifications that, in my opinion, hold zero water and zero. And then to drag the Williams into this and try to smear their father's legacy and saying that he's just like Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams might have been a lot of things. He might have been aggressive. He might have got in your face. He might have been very brash. But I doubt he has ever put his hands on another man. I strongly doubt it. And I'm deeply, deeply, deeply offended that anybody buys into this. That's how I feel about this. I'm very, very hurt. I'm very, very angry, and I'm very, very humiliated. I can't get over how the Oscars, how the participants acted about this. Where was the care for Chris Rock? Where was the crowd around him trying to comfort him, who just got slapped for making a stupid joke? And also, I'm willing to bet anything. No, I bet you he didn't even know that she was dealing with alopecia. I bet you he didn't, because most men, like we're talking to a lot of men, you know, these last few days, nobody knew. The men didn't know. Women knew.
Right.
I think Michael K made this point too. Women knew that she had alopecia. Men did not know that she had alopecia. So a woman with a shaved head seemed like a silly, easy joke. You know, maybe people groaned in the audience because she's very public about the fact that she's got this alopecia areata.
Right.
We're going to talk about in a little while. But I don't think he knew, or he probably would not have made the joke. It was a stupid joke. The whole thing could have just been, well, you know, Chris Rock bombed. He made a silly joke and offended Jada Pinkett, who's suffering from alopecia areata. And that would have been the end of it. But no, Will Smith had to go and make this about himself and then justify it. I simply
hijacked.
Is it any wonder that domestic violence in this country? You know, Trevor Noah talked about this when he did a thing on Kanye a couple of weeks ago. I saw online where he was talking about his mother. His mother was a victim of abuse, and she said every time she went to the authorities to complain, the authorities would ask her, "Well, what did you do to him to make him angry?" It's always about placating the perpetrator, never about giving, you know, comfort and aid to the victim. And I'm so sick of this. As a woman who has survived, I'm going to talk about it. As a woman who has survived domestic abuse, I am so sick of this goddamn narrative of comforting the perpetrators. The perpetrators do not need comfort. Chris Rock was a victim, okay? And I don't care that he's rich, and I don't care that he's powerful. He was slapped at his job for doing his job for no reason by another man. He was humiliated, and no one seems to care about that. But I care, Chris. I care. Anyway, Karima.
That's well said. That's well said.
Thank you. He wrote a beautiful op-ed on the issue, denouncing what happened and basically saying all that needs to be said. So I'm gonna move on from there. So Lou sent me an article about what he believes is a classification of that behavior. I mean, I'm not sure, but let's talk about it. So the term is intermittent explosive disorder. I'd never heard of this term before.
Oh, I sure have.
So it's a clinical term for road rage, going postal, any behavior where people just kind of snap. It involves repeated, sudden episodes of impulsive, aggressive, violent behavior or angry verbal outbursts in which you react grossly out of proportion to the situation. Road rage, domestic abuse, throwing or breaking objects, or other temper tantrums may be signs of intermittent explosive disorder. So you think this is Lou?
Absolutely. A smack to the face. You go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, and it's completely out of proportion. Whether some driver cut you off or some joke, didn't really hit the mark, or you're gradually upset at something. Now you're going to be like in a murderous rage. I mean, if he had a knife, would he have stabbed him? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, intermittent explosive disorder is usually a regular occurrence. It is like simple frustration will make somebody just burst into a rage. Like I've seen it in children before. I've seen it a semi-clinical setting. I've watched videos on that because it occurs. Sometimes it's comorbid with a number of neurodevelopmental conditions. So I don't think this is what Will Smith has. He might be developing, but what he does have is disinhibition, impulsivity, and emotional dysregulation, which really amounts to the same thing. Like this IED, that would be like he's had it for a while. Do we know that he's had this for a while? This could be you know,
Well,
a movie.
his mother said that he's never behaved like this before. There was an
Yeah.
article on the Griot where his mother said he'd never.
Yeah. What,
Right. I mean, this could be something going on in the brain, but that amounts to the same thing. I mean, what you're saying, I mean, it was.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Did I cut you off?
No, go ahead. Now I want to hear, because
What led me to it is not only the actual manifestation, but the after effects. I believe in the after effects. You know, right after it, there's a whole sense of relief, tiredness, craziness, and acceptance of what you did is the right thing. That's the immediate after effects. Within 1 or 2 hours, you feel like what you did was wonderful and you're kind of relieved that it's out of you. And then the manifestation of it is the next day you feel great regret. And that's kind of what we saw, that all of a sudden.
Oh, that's right. He released a statement apologizing finally.
Well, okay.
To Chris Rock.
So if we look at after.
you could have a manic episode or manic psychosis or manic delusional episode or, you know, instance, and that really amounts to the same thing.
Yeah, so it's a classic 360 on the whole thing. So first is the violent physical expression, then there's the violent verbal expression. Then after that, you get the longest ever acceptance speech and the crying and the emotion. And you can say, hey, the situation, a lot of people do cry when they get Oscars. So I'm not going to say,
Right.
I'm not going to blame it all on this, but he kept saying, I protect my family, and the whole justification of his actions.
Right.
Do you know that his son had the gall to go on Twitter?
I saw that. I saw that.
That's how we do it.
That was awful. That's how we do it. Oh God.
Then after that, he was filmed partying and showing absolutely zero remorse, dancing and
Yeah.
partying and-
Like he was having a grandiose episode. That's what
Yeah.
it looked like. He was completely jacked up. Yeah.
And then the next day, all of a sudden, apologies start coming out, and I'm sorry for what I did, but he doesn't apologize to Chris Rock. And then the next day is, okay, now I'm apologizing to Chris Rock. So the whole thing is like, what have I done? The whole what have I done thing that sets in within 24 to 48 hours, that's a classic manifestation of the syndrome, where it's like you're completely out of character instantly. And then you kind of have this period where you're almost detached from it and you're happy that this all happened. And then within 24 to 48 hours, it's, oh my God, what have I done? I've stepped in poo, you know? So that's kind of what led me to it. It's whether he has it or not, it's a classic symptoms are there.
I'd like to add a disclaimer here. We're not psychiatrists. We're not MDs.
We're
mental health
armchair
professionals. We're just
Right.
armchair. We're just armchair people just talking about it like Monday. What is it? Monday morning.
Monday quarterback.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the opinions expressed the
The
solely
opinions
are
expressed solely our own and have no medical basis. So there, just wanted to cover that.
I just want to go back to something Tamara said, which she said how everybody jumped to like defend Will, and it seemed like everybody was trying to manage him. Like there was that feeling that they have to placate him because he's so unhinged that they're placating.
That's the Stockholm I'm
indulging.
talking about. Where they
Yes,
come to
yes.
his aid and they have to, placate him and they have to.
He
calm him down.
needed other people
Will.
to regulate him. He was so dysregulated and so out of like unhinged. Yikes.
I mean, I'm just so sick to my stomach seeing that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know what? Who's the biggest star? If Chris Rock had jumped up and punched Will, maybe they still would have been coming to comfort Will.
But I have to tell you
Yeah,
that.
that's interesting. That's interesting.
Maybe, but I will say this: this goes back to race for me, because I feel like you can't tell me if he did this to Jimmy Kimmel or Jerry Seinfeld or somebody like that they would have allowed. They absolutely would not have. They would have had to remove him from the theater, but he refused to leave, and they would have made some sort of concession. Or
That's an interesting point.
I just think that Black pain is okay. Black pain sells. There's this whole Black pain porn industry.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
going right back to what was the guy who got killed, the 8.5 minutes guy,
Floyd.
Floyd.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
something-
George Floyd. Oh my
Right, yeah.
gosh. Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
this whole era that we sparked of
Yeah.
like Black pain porn that just sickens me, that people are becoming desensitized to. And it's like, you know, when they shot that young man, Ahmaud Arbery, the daughter of of one of the perpetrators who killed that poor guy who did nothing wrong but went and looked inside a house.
Like
She took
jogging.
footage of him. She took footage of his dead body on the ground and posted it on social media as if he was big game they hunted.
God.
You know, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. That Black pain is so cheap and so available and so entertaining for America. I'm just sick of it.
Yeah, and also, you know, if you're going to say what happens, I mean, at the beginning of the show, Amy Schumer was the hostess. Later on, she handed it over to Chris Rock. And she did this whole skit where she called one of the Oscar nominee, a female Oscar nominee, she called her a placeholder, and a seat filler, I think she called her. You know, it was somebody who's been nominated a bunch of times and has never won. And some of the people felt that that was a little too much.
But that's comedy.
That's a typical.
And even and by the way, right? Oscars. And even in his apology, he said something along the lines of, you know, in my line of work, I'm used to jokes. But you know, the joke about my wife, you know, set me off. Like your wife is in the business too. So what are you talking about? Like, stop making excuses. There's no excuse. If you're apologizing, apologize. Don't make excuses within an apology, or it's not a real apology.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done. I'm done. I was interested to see that King Richard movie, and now I want nothing to do with him.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done with Will Smith. I'm sorry. That I could never come back from that. I could never see him the same after that episode. I just can't. Thanks for listening to Urban Health Weekly today. I hope you'll join me and my friends next week so you can stay informed and inspired to take control of your health. See you next time.